You know why? There are so many distractions. There is just distractions. Now, this whole thread prompted a response from Mark Cuban himself, and he writes, but remember, we just print the money out of thin air, so they're at our mercy. Much like an addict coming off an addiction. At first, yes. Welcome to Busy Brain Club, where thinking is free and we should do more of it. In this video, Lynn Alden speaks out on Twitter regarding the US dollar potentially losing its status as the global reserve currency. Let's get into it. It all came in the form of a tweet. Lynn Alden says, when people fret about the US one day losing status as the sole global reserve currency, what precisely is it that they're afraid to lose? Like, who stands to lose and who stands to win? Since you got the Russians, Saudi Arabia, and a bunch of other countries creating the BRICS alliance with the intention of creating perhaps a global currency to buy energy and trade goods and services between those countries. What makes it interesting is that those countries are all large oil producers, and we know oil equals energy and everybody needs it. So this is important. If you don't know who Lynn Alden is, she's like this financial analyst, research analyst, and she does a good job as to putting data together in interesting ways for you to view financial markets and global macro kind of stuff in a different light. It's always very interesting. One thing I could tell you is she doesn't generally try to spook you into any one particular position. She is very, very measured, and that's one of the reasons why I do follow her on Twitter. But her tweet provoked a lot of interest. When people fret about the US one day losing status as the sole global reserve currency, what precisely is it that they're afraid to lose? Is it our ability to sanction anyone? Is it our 750 military bases? Which is a surprise to me. I had no idea the US had 750 military bases worldwide. How many countries are there in the world? As a matter of fact, let's look it up because I don't even remember. How many countries in the world? There are 100 and this is getting ridiculous. There is 195 countries in the world, yet still we have 750 foreign military bases. Anyways, let's go. The insanity. The third point, or artificial import boost, which comes at the cost of an artificial export weakness. What it means is imports and exports are skewed by the fact that the US has the reserve currency, which also makes sense because if that currency is stronger, we have purchasing power. While the other currencies are weaker, they manufacture goods at a cheaper rate for us to purchase. Always ask who specifically benefits or is harmed by a given framework. The US is a broad thing. Who specifically in the US? All the replies were very interesting and they came from all over the place. Now I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I can tell you Lynn Alden doesn't like sanctions, definitely, and she definitely doesn't like US foreign policy when she mentioned all those bases worldwide. But the tweet definitely provoked some reactions. Won't everyday Americans suffer? Which is, if you're losing purchasing power, doesn't that mean you have a lower standard of living? And Lynn responds, much like an addict coming off an addiction. At first, yes. But the current trend of deindustrialization is not good for blue-collar workers, national security, or political unity. It's unsustainable. So she doesn't like the whole idea of hollowing out the manufacturing sector. She doesn't like it because what happens is you're shipping those manufacturing jobs overseas. because it's too expensive to manufacture stuff here. And so the country in question that has the global reserve currency ends up being a spendthrift of sort. And we provide capital to the countries that provide us with goods. And since oil is priced in US dollars currently, they need to earn US dollars. It is beneficial for them to manufacture goods for us to purchase. But remember, we just print the money out of thin air. So they're at our mercy. So it seems as if the current euphoria that we have been experiencing over the many years of having the global reserve currency is kind of coming to an end. And I think most Americans are clueless this is happening. You know why? There are so many distractions. There is just distractions. How bad is this going to be is yet to be seen. I don't see anyone being able to predict the outcomes of us losing the global reserve currency. Now, this whole thread prompted a response from Mark Cuban himself, and he writes, "Aren't robotics and AI reversing the industrial trend? The jobs are obviously different, but the work is still solid middle class. We are building a robotics-driven factory in Dallas for drugs in short supply, and there are plenty of solid jobs. Isn't the trend to repatriate manufacturing?" And Lynn Allen replies, "The desired," and she put that in asterisks, "the desired trend is to repatriate manufacturing. But firms find it hard in practice. Taiwan Semiconductor, for example, identifies how much more expensive it is to build production in the US despite getting subsidies, which led to them asking for more subsidies." And she linked an article, and let's just read a couple of paragraphs. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, TSMC, on Wednesday said the cost of building its US chip plant is higher than previously estimated, and again called for Washington to extend planned support for the chip industry to foreign as well as domestic companies. TSMC chairman Mark Liu told shareholders at the company's annual meeting that the facility in Arizona, its first advanced chip plant in America in more than 2 decades, is turning out to be more costly than expected, though the increase will be manageable. He did not say how much the costs are exceeding expectations. Liu also said recruiting engineers and technicians in the US is more difficult than in Taiwan, but hiring is on track and currently meets the number of hires we are seeking. So there is a labor problem too. While the manufacturing jobs will be maybe say manufacturing the same things, the job roles would be different. It's kind of like if you think about a sweatshop, for example. No one is going to be working in a sweatshop in the United States, but the corporations will gladly ignore the fact that in China they are creating these sweatshops to manufacture garments and stuff that is sold to consumers in the US. If you were to try to move a sweatshop, and this is an extreme example, so just bear with me. If you're trying to move a sweatshop style manufacturing system here in the US, you would have to automate a lot of it using machines. You're gonna end up having a lot of jobs still for the manufacturing of those things, but the jobs will be different, and that's the thing that Mark is trying to emphasize. And then he follows up with a reply that says TSMC is very unique. They may be most important company in the world right now, but in terms of breadth and volume of jobs to be created, there is plenty of friction. But don't you think the real question is whether we can lead in robotics and automation, software and AI? Couldn't they be the drivers of economic growth, compensating for the loss of traditional jobs? And if we do lead, doesn't that make our role as the reserve currency stronger, as it takes US dollars to buy our most advanced tech? Curious what your thoughts are on this. Before I even see her response, my thoughts on this is that is not enough to be the leader in a global reserve currency. You need an anchor something that everyone needs. And everyone doesn't need whatever technology you came up with, because chances are it can be duplicated and copied. One of the things that the US did in the past was to link the US dollar to oil, and only a few countries in the world produce oil at the volumes that the world needs. And so if you group all of these countries together, you can have leverage. If you tell everyone in the world you have to buy your energy in US dollars, then that's a lot of leverage. What kind of leverage are you going to have if you say to them, if you're going to use my machines? No, there's nothing unique about machines or scarce about it. There's nothing. So you won't be able to hold reserve currency status in that situation. And Lynn's response, I agree, TSMC is basically number one importance right now, and it shows how hard it is to expand domestically. Imagine companies in aggregate doing this without subsidies. Individual ones can succeed, but on the big scale, it's hard. I think the US should be a leader in robotics, automation, software, and AI. And on the software side, it already is. The hardware implementation side is where the risk is, in my opinion. Lack of on-site engineers, which was emphasized in the article from the shareholders meeting at TSMC, and hard to permit and construct compared to developed like Japan and Germany, and developing countries like China, Malaysia, Mexico, like those competitors. That's basically the cost of being hollowed out from having our currency hold an extra monetary premium on it for so long, which boosts our import power but hurt export competitiveness. And by not building domestically for a while, graduates didn't generally go into those fields, didn't build expertise in those fields, so the friction are super high with difficulty finding the right labor at scale. It's reversible and fixable over time, but the monetary system as currently structured has been and remains a big headwind. So the same thing applies. If you move the manufacturing jobs overseas, and these people have been expert at manufacturing for so long, and you move them here, there wasn't a big manufacturing base, so you don't have a lot to choose from to build it here. So now, in order for the US to kind of escape this disaster, you need to train people, and this will take time, to take on manufacturing jobs, robotics, artificial intelligence job that could bring the kind of productivity to the economy that you need, driving the prices down so people can spend some money. If you want to follow along, I'll leave a link to this post in the description. There's going to be a lot of turmoil in the foreseeable future, and the United States is going to lose reserve status. I don't think it's going to be a sudden thing, but spanning maybe a 5 to 10 year period, you will start to see other currencies strengthen against the US dollar, or you could say the US dollar weakens against other currencies, and things are going to get a little tough because we will lose purchasing power. We won't be able to buy those nice things. No more fidget spinners. Let me know what you think. Do you have any fears of what is about to happen, or are you worried about your rent and your light bill? Do you think we're gonna get the jobs back from overseas? And does Mark Cuban have a point when he says AI is replacing most of the jobs anyways? Leave your comments in the comment section and let me know what you think. This is Busy Brain Club signing out. I'll see you in the next video.